Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, it is my pleasure to be here this beautiful morning. And as Mike Hines said, Ulster County is so beautiful, and this issue is so important to Ulster County as it is to the whole state. This is the first of a series of meetings we're going to be having like this across the state, but we thought it was appropriate that we started here in Ulster County. With Mike Hines, he is my type of elected official. My grandfather, Andrea, my father's father, I was named for him, Andrew for Andrea, before my father got into elected office. Whenever a politician would come on TV in the news or whatever, he would change the channel. That was back at the time where you had to get up from the couch to walk over to the TV to change it. So it was a real effort, showed a real animus. If he didn't bother changing the channel, when the politician would start to speak, he would go like this. Meaning that's all they do is talk, these people, with his Italian accent. If he was alive today and he watched what was going on in government, he'd need two hands. He'd have to go like this. Government is not about press releases and speeches. Government is about action. Government is about getting results. Government is about making a difference for people. And that's what Mike Hines is all about. He's about seeing a problem, acknowledging the problem, admit the problem, and solve the damn problem. And that's Mike Hines, and he's extraordinary, and you're lucky to have him. Let's give him a round of applause. Dr. Christian, thank you very much for your leadership of this fine institution, and thank you for giving us a break on the rent today. Let's give the doctor a round of applause. We have my colleagues here today. We have Dr. Howard Zucker, who is one of the finest health commissioners who ever served the state of New York, Richard Ball, the Commissioner of Agriculture and Markets, and Kelly Turturro, the Regional Director of DEC. Let's give them a round of applause. And we have some really great minds on this topic. We have Dr. Jennifer Graham from the U.S. Geological Society, who came in from Kansas to be with us today. You're not in Kansas anymore. We have Dr. Harold Walker, SUNY Stony Brook, Dr. Dave Matthews from the Upstate Freshwater Institute, Dr. Jillian Decker from SUNY Rockland, Dr. Beth Allers from Cornell University. Let's give them a round of applause. So I got a call this morning from one of my daughters, just graduated college, and she's inquisitive and she's a little feisty. I don't know where she gets it from. Must have skipped a generation. But she said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "I'm going down to SUNY New Paltz. I'm going to talk about water." "Well, what about water, Dad?" This was now that impatient tone, which is the non-communicative dad tone I'm getting set up for. I said, but just generally water. She said, "Well, you can't talk about water." I said, "Well, more specifically, clean water." "Well, what about clean water?" I said, "No, that's just it. Clean water is the entire topic." She said, "Well, it can't be just clean water. That's not a problem." And it caught me. Clean water. Yeah, I take it for granted. We have clean water. I know that. What's next? No, we don't really have clean water. We've taken it for granted. We grew up believing it was a God-given right, especially in this state. Adirondack Lakes, Long Island Sound, Beaverkill Stream. I mean, we had everything in this state. We just took it for granted. And now, my friends, we can't take it for granted anymore. It's also different that in the past, when there was a problem with clean water, there was a specific reason. It was cause and effect. We have a problem in the Hudson River. What was it? GE dumped PCBs, and that caused the problem. We have to fix that problem, and then the water will be clean again. By the way, if EPA lets GE off saying that they finished their job, we're going to sue them, and we're not going to allow GE off. We had a problem with the Adirondack Lakes. That was acid rain. Coal plants, emissions. Okay. Cause, solution, cause, effect. This is more insidious. There is no one cause that you can put your finger on. There is nothing that we can now go fix one thing and it's going to make a difference. And frankly, it's more frightening and more problematic. This is the law of unintended consequences. These are a series of apparently random acts and situations that have evolved over time that have created a problem that no one calculated out. We can't go back and fix it. This is not go sue GE. This is not change the emissions on coal plants. This is how we have lived our life and how society has developed, from residential homes to farms to factories, how we build sewage treatment plants. It's all of the above. And there is no one thing where you can say, well, that's it. We turn off that valve and we're going to be fine. Now, we've seen it coming for years if you wanted to see it. You saw the growth in our lakes and our ponds. It was incremental, it was slow, it was over time, but it was there if you really paid attention. But now it is critical. To me, HABs are God's way of saying, pay attention. I mean, really pay attention, and pay attention now. Harmful algal blooms are poison. They are toxic. It's not a bunch of weeds that are floating and are unsightly, and it's a cosmetic issue. These are poisons and toxins. They're growing at a frightening rate. 2015, there were 35 cases in the state of New York, the entire state. 2016, we found HABs in drinking water supply, which now takes it to a new level. 2017, 100 beaches closed because of HABs. 2 years. It went from a sporadic issue to a major consequential issue. Now, if we don't get it under control, what happens? First, pragmatically, it is devastating for our economy. Big part of our economy is tourism, is recreation. We've done very well with tourism and recreation. It's way up in the mid-Hudson. We advertise. And interestingly, what happens is the more tourists who come to New York, the more tourists want to come and the more repeat tourism. You know, we get 50 million tourists coming to New York City every year. What we've done over the past few years is say to those 50 million, that's nice, you come to New York City, it's beautiful, great urban area. But while you're here, come 2 miles north and see the Hudson Valley and see what inspired an entire generation of artists. So the tourism has been growing. If you have lakes where you can't fish, if you have lakes where you can't swim, that would be a major economic problem. Worse than that, many of these lakes are sources of drinking water. And once you have a polluted or dangerous source of drinking water, you have a real problem. I am living with it now all across the state. Well, we'll add filtration. Oh no. This is now a Pandora's box of issues. What filtration? How much? Does it actually work? You don't find a filtration system where anyone will sign a letter that says, if the water goes through this filtration system, there's nothing you have to worry about. Everything is caveated. One of our great assets is our drinking water from our lakes. We went through this with the New York City reservoir system 15 years ago with cryptosporidium, where we went through great efforts to preserve the quality of the drinking water, because once you get into filtration, it's never the same. And it's an ongoing process because the situation morphs and now you need a different type of filtration that goes on. What causes HABs? Damned if we know. That's why you're here. We know the elements that cause HAB, but it's a little different in different situations, and it's never quite the same. So yes, you have runoff, you have phosphorus, you have excess nitrogen, you have septic systems that have failed, you have farm runoff, you have factory residue, you have residences that use a lot of fertilizer because they love the color green. You put all these things in a soup and you let it brew for months and years, and you have a result, HABs. But it's a little different in different lakes. So we can't tell you this is the formula and this is the solution. So what do we want to do? Start with 12 of the most problematic lakes. Study those lakes. Determine what is happening to cause the blooms in those lakes. Address those lakes and hopefully learn from the exercise overall, so that when we're done, we can say, well, here are the 12, these were the variations, this is what we did here at work, this is what we didn't do here. Because it's not just 12 lakes in the state. And I guarantee you, 2 years from now, someone's going to be on a podium like this saying, this is a statewide chronic problem. These 12, to me, are the canary in the coal mine. And that's why we want to focus on these 12, and that's what we want to do now. So your mission, it's part research, it's part science, it's part conservation, it's part governmental responsibility, because local governments will have responsibility here. It's part communitarian, because we all live around these bodies of water. And what we do as a community is affecting those bodies of water. We come up with causes, we come up with recommendations, we come up with strategies. Today you're going to focus on Lake Carmel, Putnam Lake, Monhegan, and Palmer Lake. No one is suggesting, as I said before, this is the exclusive problem. These lakes are more problematic than most in the state, but again, it's a statewide problem, and we want to use these 4 to learn. One thing we don't need to do today is to cast blame about yesterday and point fingers. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where people get exercised and people get frightened, and it quickly evolves into the blame game. It's like Thanksgiving dinner at my house. It quickly evolves into who did the wrong thing first, and then everybody reacted to that chain of wrong things. Well, it's the farmers who have runoff. Well, it's all those homes that have old septic systems. Well, it's the new homes where they're dumping all this fertilizer from the lawn into the lake. Well, it's the town because the septic system, the sewage system is out of date and we knew they weren't treating it properly. That is counterproductive. The truth is, it's all of the above. And the truth is, arguing about yesterday doesn't make tomorrow better. And this is about coming up with solutions today that make tomorrow better. This is, I believe, one of the major issues for our generation. It's not just an environmental issue. It very much is going to be a drinking water issue. It's easier to see when you have a lake and you then have drinking water issues. But we have drinking water issues all across the state. And they are popping up. It's from the groundwater. We are seeing chemicals we never saw before. And this is in many ways an unexplored adventure that we're on. Commissioner Ball and Commissioner Zucker are here. We had in Hoosick Falls, PFOA in the water source from a company that was there 20, 30 years ago. We have on Long Island the Grumman plume. Grumman was a big manufacturer, used all sorts of chemicals. It was a great employer, made great aircraft, left an industrial stain that you couldn't see from the surface, but it seeped into the groundwater, and now the groundwater is migrating all across Long Island. And, law of unintended consequences, the pollutants from Grumman meet the pollutants from a plastic manufacturing company, meet the pollutants from a different chemical company. And now you have a combination of chemicals that you never even anticipated. And those chemicals now create new chemicals. We've been dealing with the federal EPA for the past few years. They don't even know the list of chemicals you should be testing for. And if they know the list of chemicals, they don't know the tolerance levels so they can set safe amounts of that chemical in drinking water. So we don't even fully understand the problem. And when you're talking about the quality of drinking water, you're talking about the fundamental quality of health in this state and on this planet. Now, we're not alone. This is not a curse on the state of New York. It's nothing that New York did that other states didn't do. Every state is dealing with this. Our approach is different. Why? We're being much, much more aggressive. Why? Because we are much, much more aggressive. We're New Yorkers. Also, the canary in the coal mine, I don't believe in denial as a life strategy. You will never solve a problem you fail to recognize. The earlier you recognize these problems, the better, because the easier it is to change. Government's instinct is to deny, is to do nothing. An old expression, government official who does nothing wrong. No risk, do nothing. Yeah, I don't believe that. It's not why I was elected. It's not who I am genetically. It's not my personality. And I think it's a flawed governmental philosophy. It's the sin of omission. You were there. It was your responsibility. We are here. It is our responsibility. And it has always been the state's way. This state started the environmental movement. It was birthed right here on the Hudson River at Storm King, where you had the first real mobilization, where people said, let's put the environment first, and let's think of the long-term unintended consequences. We started it here. First state to start a Department of Environmental Conservation before the federal government did. First state to pass a law banning DDT before the federal government ever did. First state to pass a law on acid rain, Mario Cuomo, governor of the state of New York. So we've always been more aggressive. We've always led. And this is an issue that is critical, and it's critical that we fulfill our role and we step up to the plate. At the end of the day, it gets very simple. I just turned the big 6-0 in December. And you get that old because there's nothing good about turning 60. And by the way, nobody even has a good rationalization to 60. They say, well, 60 is the new 50. Well, 50 stinks too. So, I mean, what does that do for you? But you do gain something called perspective. And at the end of the day, it's very simple. We're here for a very short period of time, and we're given this gift, and we have one obligation. Use your time, your talent, your resources to leave this place a better place. Leave it better for your children than you found it. The Native Americans have a beautiful proverb. We did not inherit the land from our parents. We are borrowing it from our children. We're going to leave them a state that is better, cleaner, safer than the state we inherited. This challenge, my friends, is the forefront of this issue. And this is the first meeting in the state of New York, and one of the first meetings in the nation where people actually came together to address it. I know you will. Thank you, and God bless you.